So I began training a guy in person recently who's a really talented boxer. He's basically somebody that's been doing it all his life. And he was really keen to train with me after witnessing me training at the same gym, and he was really impressed by my speed, fluidity and my movement. And during our first session, I took him through a similar warm-up and mobility routine that I would typically do before training myself. And then a little while after this, when we'd gotten into the session, we were doing some pad work and he commented about how good he felt and how just free he felt within his body. And he specifically said that he felt he could really let the punches go and didn't feel the usual sense of kind of limitation and hindered movement that he often felt when he trained. And when I heard that, it kind of hit me that the reason he was experiencing this when training with me is because I took him through that more focused routine that I would typically do for very dynamic martial arts training, and how it's probably not very common for boxing specific coaches to do something like that. And it makes complete sense why this would be the case, because boxing appears to be a more upper body centric activity because we're only using the arms to strike. But in actual fact, it's far more of a full body activity than we realise. And I'm talking beyond having strength in the legs that allows us to root ourselves into the ground and hit with power. And I started to think about this and realised the reason why I'm able to move in the way I do with my punching techniques in terms of flow and fluidity in particular is because I've got a high degree of mobility that came from my martial arts training that's incidentally provided me with that freedom in my body to move how I want to when punching. So when we're training and choosing areas to focus upon, it's not always about the most things that are immediately apparent that would provide us with a benefit, because as I already mentioned, it doesn't seem on a surface level that a boxer would benefit from having the level of flexibility that a martial artist would, but it's more about the effects that would happen incidentally to the already existing boxing skills where all of that benefit actually lies. It allows us to move our joints through a greater range of motion, which is vital for executing various punches, defensive maneuvers and footwork techniques effectively. But perhaps the biggest benefit is that it allows us to generate more power in our punches and move with greater agility. And the reason for this is because having a greater degree of flexibility and range of motion in certain muscle groups will have a direct relationship with other seemingly unconnected groups. For example, I've got very good hamstring flexibility, and to the untrained eye this would seem to be something only applicable in performing kicking techniques. And the way a boxer might tend to stretch their hamstring may be akin to the way a runner or football player might do, just utilising some basic stretches before engaging in their activity. However, if you were to develop this hamstring flexibility to a much greater degree, and more than most would think is necessary, it will mean that you're more greatly able to utilise the energy generated through the kinetic chain. And this is because you'll have a greater degree of bodily freedom in terms of twisting through the hips when executing your punches. Because if you have tight hamstrings, this will directly affect the muscles further up the kinetic chain, such as the glutes and muscles of the lower back, meaning you won't be getting the greatest amount of rotation through the hips as you possibly could. And this has a knock-on effect of hindering your upper body movement, which creates kind of like a bottleneck, meaning that you're not able to achieve the maximum potential of that punch. And this explains why one of the most common pitfalls I see with people's punching technique is insufficient projection of the shoulders, which happens because they aren't twisting through the body enough. And this is something that client also mentioned, is that he wasn't feeling limited when punching in the way he normally would do, especially in areas like his lower back. And I believe this is why I'm personally able to generate such force in my techniques despite my relatively small stature, which is a comment I commonly receive from people I train with. It's because I've got that high range of motion from my prior martial arts training that allows me to have a greater punching ability. Because having good mobility facilitates good punching technique. When you can fully extend your arms, twist your torso and pivot on your feet without restriction, your punches become more precise, powerful and efficient. So those are some direct effects that it would have to your punching technique specifically, but there is just so much more to it than that as well. Having a greater degree of mobility goes a long way to helping with things like injury prevention, because being supple drastically reduces the likelihood of straining your muscles, and when the connective tissues in your body are flexible, then they're able to better absorb harsh impacts and withstand quick changes in direction without becoming overly stressed. And also flexible joints are much less prone to overuse injuries that happen by repeating techniques over and over again. And if you dedicate just a bit of time to properly limber up the muscles prior to training, and combine that with gradually building up the intensity in your sessions to specifically activate the muscles in the right way, then you won't feel as sore after a session with a high degree of physical exertion. And then you can train more and get better faster, and this improves your performance over time because you're able to be more consistent with it. So as you become more mobile, you'll gain a greater degree of control over your whole body, enabling you to relax more efficiently, which is essential to be able to strike with increased speed, power, as well as help with endurance and consistent high output. I'd also suggest mixing this with drills that focus upon balance and coordination, like jump rope and on one of my favourites, which is the agility ladder. So having a high degree of flexibility means you'll be better equipped to maintain your balance when doing things like evading punches and slipping past opponents, and transitioning between offensive and defensive movements more seamlessly and effortlessly. And so I hope this video has sold you upon the benefits of having a more extensive focus upon flexibility and mobility in your boxing training than you may have previously thought necessary. And it's not like you have to do loads either. Boxers will tend to stretch the calves before training, but I suggest also working to activate the hamstrings, quads and groin muscles using dynamic leg swings and similar upper body work before training. And it can also be particularly effective to do these in the morning shortly after waking up, and that's also a great way to get the blood flowing as you start your day. And beyond that, I would even go as far as to suggest boxers learn some kicking techniques if they really want to excel in this stuff, even if they don't actually intend to use them, because that's going to have massively beneficial effects on their movement, their body control, stability and their balance. Or if you're not interested in that, then at least adopt a more focused stretching routine that's something similar to what a martial artist or a dancer might do, because that's only going to be a net positive. And I'm talking about something that's done outside of your regular training sessions with the sole purpose of increasing your flexibility, not just something done at the beginning of a session to limber up. I hope you enjoyed this video today, guys. If you would like to book a one-on-one coaching call with me, you can find the link to book those in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.